Welcome into the inaugural BMOC Bet Buffet, where we bring in Jeff Nadeau, big man on campus, and we break down 4 college football games for the upcoming week. So let's bring him in. Jeff Nadeau, find him on Twitter at Jeff Nadeau, big man on campus. How you doing today, buddy?
Doing great, Drew. Ready to talk college football with you on the BMOC Bet Buffet.
I love it, dude. I love it. I'm excited for this show, and let's get right into it. I know that you like the military academy, so let's start right at the top of the card, 307, 308. Jeff, we got Buffalo, plus 16.5 right now on the SBR odds screen, total of 54.5. Which way are you looking to bet this game?
I'm looking on the favorite here, Army. You look at last year with these two teams, a hard-fought win for the Buffalo Bulls. This was only after Army had a big win on the road against UTEP. They had to go up to Buffalo, play in adverse conditions, a little wet, a little raw, really just kind of a wild game. They turned the ball over a little too much, and they were off such a big win. You would expect kind of a problem maybe off that big win. But you look at this week, Drew. I know the military schools. I look kind of really deep into them. Great conditions up at West Point this week. It's their first home game against a real opponent. They're coming off a 64-6 win against Fordham, a game in which, Drew, they didn't complete a pass. They were absolutely fantastic on the ground, over 500 yards of rushing offense. And I'm a little concerned with Buffalo here. I know they played well in week 1 against Minnesota, but really in that game, it was big that Minnesota just couldn't move the football. In a game against Army, you need to be able to almost match them score for score, get a ton of stops. You're looking at a Buffalo team that was 124th last year against the run. A lot of those players are back, but my question, Drew, is are they any good? If you look at last year, they had a lot of trouble stopping the run. And look, I mean, that great home crowd in front of the cadets there, in front of that vaunted option offense, I just think it's really going to be hard for Buffalo to kind of duplicate what they did last year. Going from Minnesota to Army is a little bit different. This Army option is humming, and you and I have talked before. Once you get this option humming, it's very tough to stop. They're in revenge here. Look for the Army midshipmen to get the job done here. I see they win this one like 41-21, 41-17, something like that. I think they get the job done here and cover the 16.5-point number.
Yeah, so you're liking the favorite here, and it sounds like you also like the over. But just to give you a little pushback on this, looking towards the Buffalo side, Tyree Jackson, he's kind of the dual threat kid that can maybe give a defense like Army, as far as maybe talent-wise, not as high, some issues because he can make some plays with his feet. And also, you mentioned it as well, the defense for Buffalo did play well against this option attack. So even though they were lower ranking against the run, the option can be kind of different than just a normal between the tackles running game. So that could transfer over to this year, could it not?
Yeah, it definitely could. I'm just not in much belief, Drew, that they can move the football, Buffalo. This team only had 262 total yards last week. I look at an Army defense that's pretty good. And you mentioned Tyree Jackson, the quarterback. Many don't know Fordham is a very good football team. They're top 15 FCS team. They were absolutely shut down against Army. I look at that as to a similar opponent. I think Buffalo and Fordham are probably on a similar level as far as talent. You're kind of a bad FBS team is kind of on the same level as a pretty decent FCS team. So for me, I think it's going to be pretty similar to what they faced week 1. And in front of their home crowd, the weather conditions are much better here. I look for Buffalo to kind of just not be able to keep up here. And that avalanche in the second half really puts them up and over. And Army gets a pretty comfortable victory here.
All right, I like the breakdown, BMOC. I know you know the FCS schools, and obviously the military academy is maybe the best military academy football handicapper in the world. We don't know.
I wouldn't be mad at that. I am absolutely obsessed with the military. I think it's fascinating. And, when you really look at these programs, you can get a lot of good information. And Drew, what better group to bet on? I mean, you bet on a disciplined, group of guys that really care. What more could you want?
Yeah, absolutely. Penalties don't kill you. I'd really like to run the progression of maybe over the last decade. Do they hit it over a 52.38%, against the number? I'd really like to see those numbers because I think you might be onto something. But let's stick with the military academy. 347, 348. We got Tulane traveling to play Navy. Navy minus 13, total of 48. I'll tell you, Willie Fritz, I like what he's doing with Tulane. The Green Wave, I think their future is very bright. But I love your angle on the Navy side. Tell us why.
Yeah, Navy's probably been Drew in top three of my most profitable teams in my sports betting career entirely. Kenny Amatulolo is a god to me. I hope one day to meet him. He's absolutely great. And you mentioned culture, discipline in our last breakdown with Army. You got even more of it here at the Naval Academy. They're just built on discipline, and they really have a vigorous schedule. I mean, they have to go to school, they got to train, they got to do 5 years of service. So there's really a lot of dedication to this program. They all love the Naval Academy, they love their country, and in this game, they're back at home, in front of their cadets as well. That's a pretty nice atmosphere down there in Annapolis. I don't know if you've ever been there, Drew, but it's really beautiful, kind of in the capital, and it's really nice. But they're back home here, and they have a little bit of a heavy heart, Drew. Their offensive coordinator, Ivan Jasper, the creator pretty much of the triple option attack at Navy. His son, 10-year-old son, has a heart condition and needs a heart transplant. He's been away from the program. I actually saw some video of the team being addressed about this. There are a lot of heavy hearts there, and my angle with the military schools is when you have something at this kind of level involving a team like a military school, you really have to put all your eggs in their basket. You look at last year, Army had a situation with a teammate passing away. They took that and really dedicated the season. Look at what they did, beat Navy. Really were a great team last year. And I look at this, I think you made a good point. I think Tulane's an up and coming team. I'm pretty high on them this year. I think they kind of surprise. But I just don't know that they're going to be able to keep up with Navy, similar to the first game we talked about. I think Navy's just a better version of Tulane. Navy's 20 for 28 in their last 28 against the spread at home. They're a cover machine in Annapolis. And look, I mean, I think their defense, Tulane, will struggle here. Obviously, I know they faced that option attack a lot, but they lost some key components last year. And I think they're just 1 or 2 years away. For me, I think this big time rushing attack will do similar to what they did in the first game against FAU, really just break it down. And Drew, you look at the first game, just 2 penalties for Navy. Look for them to be in the top 5 this year in fewest penalties committed. I like the midshipmen to kind of blow this open in the second half. 42-17, something like that. I do kind of like the over as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Navy pushes that total themselves. I mean, they can put up 50 like it's no one's business.
Yeah, like in the disciplined football. So going with Army and Navy. Let's move on to 367, 368. We got Marshall versus NC State. NC State opening up -20, now showing about -24.5 at SBR odds right now, pretty much across the board. A total of 55. Are you liking this market move, or are you looking to fade the market?
I'm actually looking at the total in this game, Drew. I considered the underdog here, but I kind of looked at it and said, why not just take the over here? You look at week one. Neither of these teams ran the ball particularly well. They both had major trouble doing that. I think NC State's defensive line is very good. I think Marshall will abandon the run in this game and really just kind of look to beat them through the air. NC State had a lot of trouble last week in their pass defense. I think they're going to have trouble all year in their pass defense. And Chase Litton's a guy that I think should be able to move the ball. They come in with a little confidence after a big win, week one against Miami of Ohio. And you could say they benefited from some special teams turnovers and things like that. But overall, it was a big win for this program. And now they got to go on the road and face a team in NC State who, look, they really hummed last week offensively. Finley was really in his element. Jalen Samuels had a big game. I don't think either of these teams is going to be particularly adamant on running the football. Both like to move the football. They both have a little trouble defending. I think NC State's biggest problem is their pass defense. They might really stop the run up front, but I think they're going to be open season in the back end. I look at this one at like a, I don't know, 38-21 type of game. I think they will cover Marshall, but I feel like NC State should be able to put up some points in this one. I think Marshall's good for, 14 to 21 points. This should get us up and over the total of 55. Kind of a conservative total, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like this one, especially NC State pushing the pace, so the tempo should be there. And we got one more for you in the nightcap, 393, 394. San Diego State, the Aztecs traveling to Tempe to take on Arizona State. Arizona State -3.5 and total of 54, Jeff. So are you looking to bet this from a side or a total perspective?
Yeah, I'm going to look at the underdog here, the Aztecs, a team that I've always really respected and had a high confidence in. Their coach, Rocky Long's really built them into a nice program out there on the West Coast. Their athletic program in general is very good. But, many thought with Donnell Pumphrey leaving, the all-time leading rusher, this team would kind of lose a step. Rashad Penny was waiting in the wings to really take over that tailback position. And Drew, what I like about them is their quarterback Chapman doesn't get a lot of respect, but he doesn't turn the football over. He's a really good passer. He's accurate. He doesn't beat you. He just kind of does his thing, hands the football off, gives you occasional first down, and really just kind of doesn't make a mistake. Defensively, I think they're going to have a little problem in this game. Their secondary wasn't particularly good against UC Davis of all teams, but you know what, Drew? I think, and I allot a lot of that to really just kind of the game was out of reach, didn't really care much. UC Davis was looking to score some points late, and they could be in some trouble here, but it's hard to back a team in Arizona State that gave up 549 yards against New Mexico State. Really had a lot of trouble putting that football team away. San Diego State's a team that I think is the best team in the Mountain West Conference, and I think they're going to go in here and get an upset against the kind of drabby Arizona State Sun Devils. I don't know that I'm ready to back a team that really just can't get any stops on the defensive end. I think Rashad Penny has a big game here. Look for San Diego State to be in a position to win this game late. We'll take the what do you got? 3.5. I'll take the 3.5 in my back pocket here.
Yeah, and Jeff, just to bring up the New Mexico State offense like you did, it's pretty a drastic difference from New Mexico State's offense that put up, a near 500 yards against Arizona State, going to San Diego State, which is going to be more of the ground and pound under Rocky Long. Do you think that will help them or hurt them? And if it helps them, if it helps Arizona State's defense, would you look towards the under of 54?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I mean, Larry Rose is a guy that's kind of their catalyst in New Mexico State. And Drew, they actually put up over 500. They put almost 550 yards on the board.
Yeah.
Like I said with Chapman, I think he's underrated. I think he's a better passer than people think. You look at in week one, I mean, he was extremely accurate, almost 70% of his passes. They just don't beat themselves on the offensive side. And they have a guy in Penny who I think is going to be really hard for Arizona State to ball up here. Look for Rocky Long to have a good game plan. I got to tell you, Drew, honestly, I would consider, I almost want to say over here. I think the San Diego State secondary, they had a lot of turnover last year, lost Casey, lost some other options as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see Keelan Ballage and kind of that quarterback, Manny Wilkins, kind of carve them up a little bit. It'll be a close game. I got a feeling it's a little bit more high scoring. Maybe it'll be getting to the 30s, 34, 31, something like that. I'm one to think we see more points as opposed to no points.
Okay, Jeff. So we got the underdog, the Aztecs. We also got the over in Marshall versus NC State, and then you're on both military academies, the Navy laying the points, and Army as well. So those are the 4 plays from BMOC. We'll be back next week. This is the BMOC Bet Buffet. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.